The upcoming video tour is a follow-up to the tour of the Pioneer Courthouse in St. George, Utah. Unlike other video tours you may have watched on our Backroads West channel, this one will be different, as we were commissioned by the City of St. George to create a walking tour that shows and explains the history behind many of its historic buildings. So, continue watching, and we'll take you on a virtual stroll down the streets of this desert city to see where history took place. Enjoy the tour. Now that you've watched the video about St. George's Pioneer Courthouse and have taken the tour, are you ready to go on a virtual walking tour of the surrounding neighborhoods to see historical commercial buildings? All right then, let's get started. As you saw in the first video, both the commercial and residential building tours start at the Pioneer Courthouse. You can leave your car parked here, and our tour route will bring you back. Our walking tour is going to be roughly a mile long on city sidewalks. Depending on how long you spend at each building, it may take an hour or so. This video tour, however, will only take a few minutes, and then you'll be familiar with the route when you take the tour in person. Here's a quick overview of our walking route. Here's the courthouse, as you can see marked on the map. We'll walk up the street to the end of the block and turn left. Now on the street 200 North, we'll walk past the Opera House that was built in 1875. Next door is the St. George Art Museum. At the end of the block, which is Main Street, we'll turn left again and walk downhill to the center of downtown. On both sides of the street, we'll pass by historical houses and commercial buildings. At the traffic light, we'll cross St. George Boulevard and continue walking downhill towards the tall steeple, which is the St. George Mormon Tabernacle. Many of the buildings on the right or west side of Main Street here were built between 1890 and 1930. At the next block, we'll turn right and pass by a whole collection of historical buildings, some commercial, others that started out as homes, then converted to businesses. At the end of the block, we'll cross the street and walk into the St. George Town Square. Here we'll walk past a big building called the Woodward School that was built between 1898 and 1901. In the town square, we'll make our way back to Main Street while marveling at the St. George Tabernacle. Once back to Main Street, we'll turn right and look at what once was the Dixie Academy. The building is still there, but now it's the St. George Children's Museum. Next, we'll turn around and walk towards the Tabernacle and then turn right onto Tabernacle Street. On the right side of the street is another collection of interesting and historical commercial buildings. We'll turn around and head back to Main Street. Turn right, this time walking uphill. Cross St. George Boulevard, then turn right. As we walk our final block back to the courthouse, we pass by yet more historic buildings. And voila! We're back at the courthouse. All right, now let's get going on the virtual tour so that you can see what all these buildings look like, as well as the walking route itself. Here we go. As you can see as we start zooming into St. George, we will be using Google Earth's 3D imagery to help you visualize the neighborhoods and streets the tour will take you on. After leaving the courthouse, we will soon come across the Pioneer Museum. Here is where the local museum for the Daughters of Utah Pioneers is located. It has more historic artifacts of St. George, and, if you have the time, this museum is well worth a stop. We walk up to the end of the block and turn left onto 200 North, then walk to about here to look at the St. George Opera House that, as you can see on the side of the building, was built in 1875. It sat 300 people and served the community until the 1930s. Next door is the St. George Art Museum, another worthwhile stop. Now let's get over to Main Street and walk downhill towards the traffic light. Along this block are several residential homes that have been converted into businesses. We'll talk more about these in the residential tour. We'll cross St. George Boulevard and cross over to the right side of Main Street if we haven't already done that, because we can get a closer look at the buildings on the right side. The first building on the corner of Main and the Boulevard is a new hotel built in 2019. The next building is historic and is currently occupied by the Bear Paw Cafe. This was originally the St. George Co-op Mercantile Building that was built in 1876. We continue walking down Main Street, where the rest of the block is made up of all old commercial buildings built from the late 1890s until around the 1920s. At 17 North Main, the Bishop's Storehouse was built in 1887 to receive and store the offerings of LDS church members that were to be distributed to the widows, the poor, and the needy in town. It is currently a real estate office. This is an old picture from around 1900 showing the same block we're walking on. You can see the Tabernacle in the distance. Most of these buildings were replaced by the 1920s. Here's also a view looking down Tabernacle Street. At the end of the block, we'll turn right, which puts us on Tabernacle Street. And, sure enough, across the street is the Tabernacle. We'll talk more about this later. We'll walk a little further, and, on the right, we pass by St. George's oldest ongoing business, Thomas Judd's General Store. It was built around the 1890s. In 1911, the store was purchased by the Judd family. Today, it serves as a candy and ice cream store. Continuing west on Tabernacle Street, we soon pass by Greengate Village, which is a collection of commercial buildings now, but originally were a lot of residences. There are about 10 buildings located here. At the end of the block, we'll turn left and cross Tabernacle Street. Here we'll enter the St. George Town Square. On our left is this building, the Woodward School. The early settlers here put a high value on education and built this school in 1898. Today, it serves as administrative offices for the Washington County School District and has some historical artifacts on display inside. From here, we'll mosey through the town square, around to the left of the Woodward School, past the Carousel, and then marvel at the south side of the St. George Mormon Tabernacle. The Tabernacle took 13 years to build and was completed in 1876. Its purpose is to hold community gatherings and provide a place of worship. With construction of the St. George Temple being complete the following year and the Pioneer Courthouse already complete in 1870, by the late 1870s, the budding town of St. George was really starting to take shape, as you can see in this historic picture from about the turn of the century. All right, when we reach the sidewalk of Main Street again, let's turn right to look at another historical place, the Dixie Academy Building. It was built in 1911. This was basically the beginnings of Dixie State University, or DSU, which is now known as Utah Tech. Today, the university is located about a mile east of here, and this building now serves as the St. George Children's Museum. Now, let's turn around and head back towards the Tabernacle. Once at the traffic circle there, turn right and cross the street. We'll now walk east on the right side of Tabernacle Street. Our first building of interest is the Dixie Photo Shop. This fine two-story building became a business in the early 1920s. It was built along the Arrowhead Trail that would later become U.S. Highway 91 which was later moved a block north onto St. George Boulevard a few years later, then replaced by Interstate 15 in the 1970s. Many important services were carried out at this building that really enhanced the lives of those who lived in St. George. There were many former occupants and businesses in this building. The Dixie photo sign dates from around the mid-1960s. The next building of interest down the street is the Electric Theater. It was built in 1911 and has 220 seats. Ownership changed hands several times over the last 110 years. It stopped showing movies in 1999. In 2013, the City of St. George purchased the Electric Theater and uses it now for various activities, including plays, concerts, and presentations. At the end of the block, just past the Electric Theater, is another interesting historic commercial building. The date of the original structure is unknown, but it was owned and operated as the Nelson Mercantile until 1924. It changed hands and appearance a few times, then was restored to its original appearance in 1992. Okay, we're almost done with our walking tour. Let's trace our steps back to Main Street, turn right, and head back uphill towards St. George Boulevard. We'll cross the boulevard at the traffic light, then turn right and walk the boulevard's sidewalk back to the courthouse. Along the way, though, you'll walk past a row of commercial buildings that were mostly built in the 1960s. But this small building here was built as a saloon in the 1880s in the nearby mining town of Silver Reef. After the silver boom ended around 1890, it was moved here and became the County News Building. The Washington County News was printed here until around 1900. After that, this building housed several other businesses. Another minute of walking east on the boulevard returns us back to the courthouse and your parked car. Thanks for joining us on our virtual walking tour around downtown St. George, and we hope this walk didn't tire you out too much. Be sure to go on our tour of historic residential homes located around the same area. That tour is similar to this one, but takes a slightly different walking route and focuses on neighborhoods west and north of the courthouse. The Pioneer Courthouse is open Monday through Saturday, but closed Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Admission is free. For more information, call 435-632-1215 or visit Facebook at Pioneer Courthouse STG.